Welcome to the Whole Career Podcast, where we explore the world of healthcare careers with Advent Health professionals. We're your hosts, Brandon Strong and Sky Kellogg, and we're excited to take you on a journey of career exploration, development, and success.
At Advent Health, we believe in caring for the whole person, which includes supporting our team members' professional growth and development. In this podcast, we'll be highlighting valuable career information, resources, and advice to help you succeed in both your professional and personal life.
Each episode will feature conversations with Advent Health professionals who will share their personal career journeys, insights, and perspectives on various healthcare careers. From nursing to technology to leadership, we'll cover a wide range of topics to help you stay informed and inspired.
Whether you're just starting out in your healthcare career or you're a seasoned professional looking to take the next step, this podcast is for you. We hope to empower you with the knowledge and tools you need to grow, succeed, and make a positive impact in your field.
At Advent Health, we believe that we are greater as a whole, and we invite you to join us on this journey. So sit back, relax, and let's explore the world of healthcare careers together.
Hello and welcome back to the Whole Career Podcast. My name is Sky Kellogg and I'm here with my co-host Brandon Strong. And we are excited to have uh, just a starting of the podcast episode, just the two of us, no guests today. We are the guests of honor. So excited to be able to chat with Brandon here and talk about the starting of this podcast and a little bit about our background. We'll cover a lot of topics, but we hope that this allows you to get to know us a little bit more as well as the process and hopefully will inspire you because this is something we probably didn't think we were going to be doing as part
Yes.
of our career.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
hopefully, if it's not a podcast, maybe there's something else that you can are dreaming of or thinking of, and not thinking it's going to be in your path, and it ends up being there. So hopefully, this will align with that as well for you. So let's kick it off, Brandon. If you could just share a little bit about your professional background and your current role at Advent Health.
Great, great. So my exact title is recruitment specialist, and specifically for the heritage department or heritage, supporting the heritage team. And so what that means is on the talent strategy team, which is a larger team that I'm on, our focus is recruiting from the Adventist universities that we're especially partnered with, that we support. Right, we have a lot of our Adventist students that their goal, right, is to work for an institution that reflects their morals and their values and even their faith. And so, my job specifically on this team is to make sure that those recruitment events are stood up and that. Uh, Recruiting those students for our internship, which we have with a leadership internship, and then also a leadership residency program, which we have, making sure that I can staff those those internship programs and the residency programs, and then of course when I'm not actually interviewing and sourcing or bringing and onboarding people onto the team, I am developing events and doing cool stuff like the podcast. So
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
awesome.
So Sky, I'm gonna flip that question back to you. What's your title? What is your role here at Advent Health on the talent strategy team?
Yeah, yeah. So I, as Brandon, work on the talent strategy team. My role is to focus on our national conferences. So I plan and organize our exhibitors as well as our booths to show up at National Nursing Association conferences. Next year, we're expanding beyond that into physical therapy and surgical tech. So just making sure that we have a presence. And big part of that role is really ensuring that Advent Health is a household name by 2030. I also work on our virtual panel discussions, so ensuring that team members and new facilities, new openings, all of that happen and are seen online. So we do that through Microsoft Teams, do live webinars, and then those get posted to our YouTube page. And then I have the pleasure of obviously doing this as a part of my role. And then I also work in the project management space on our team as well. So moving projects through Monday.com and being able to keep everything on task, so a little bit of everything, but I have to say this is probably my favorite part of of everything that I get to do. So it's an honor to be able to do this and to hear people's stories. I have a background in marketing, sales, and management as far as my degree, and then I started in talent sourcing at Advent Health almost 5 years ago.
Awesome, ladies and gentlemen, a Swiss Army knife. No, just you know, I know. I mean, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. And I did forget to share my background. So my background is I graduated with a bachelor's in social work, and I did case management for 2 years. But since then, so for the last 7 years, I've been in the recruitment, talent acquisition, HR, talent strategy space, right? Bouncing around here and there in those different areas. And so, yeah,
Yeah, and that social work background, I just wanna give a shout out to Brandon, has still paid off, because he has been since this is a more personal episode, a little bit about us, he has helped me tremendously in our story of
yep,
understanding the system and bringing, foster children into our home and moving into the adoption process, so,
I love it.
yeah, yeah, it's great. It's great to be personal friends outside of the
Yeah,
podcast
yeah,
too, just for our listeners to know. He's
absolutely.
wonderful in that way, so, yeah,
Absolutely. I'm glad that although I may not be directly in the space, that I still have a chance to like, I don't know, be close to it in some way. So yeah,
yeah,
I love it. I love it.
awesome.
So do you want to talk about just like the day-to-day responsibilities of like what you do? So I know you mentioned conferences, I know you mentioned different panels and things like that. Can you talk to us about what it's like to actually, when you're not at those conferences, what it's like to actually figure out how you're going to get there, like the strategic side of it, and the operation side of it?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of it is a lot of communication with vendors, communication with our internal team members, the association, and planning out booth location, giveaways, collateral, ensuring that our booth vendor that ships our collateral has everything on hand and knows the quantities to send. Right now, we have one of our largest conferences coming up, which is Magnet, happening at the end of October. So, right now, it's all about communication and reaching out to gather exhibitors. So, we have to have people at the booth to, you know, just spread who Advent Health is, spread that word, spread our mission, and be able to represent the organization on a national level. So that's a big focus of what I'm doing right now. But yeah, a lot of it is coordinating. I would say heavily project management, managing every little piece at a time. And no day really looks the same for me, which is someone who's really structured can be a little bit of a challenge. But that's really helped me grow professionally. I think to know that it's not going to look the same, but different things will come your way, and you're going to grow from each situation that pops up. So yeah, what does your day to day look like?
So when I'm not traveling,
Yeah.
or actually uh, at a school or at a facility, what that looks like is developing professional development tools. So we believe that if you're going to recruit from universities, those entry level roles, right, we want to make sure that people are prepared to actually jump in and step into those roles. And so one of the things I do is, create content, creating professional development tools that may look like hosting a workshop, that may look like hosting a presentation, that also might look like adding some different resources to the platforms or sending them directly to the students about professional development or just about how to source roles, how to source a job, what are the things that you should be expecting to go through during these times. So, and when I say these times, meaning this junior to senior year of a student's college career. And so yeah, so creating that content for professional development, and then also making sure that we're standing up events that aren't just hiring events, right? So being creative in those events that we have. So for instance, we noticed that a lot of our students that may be interested in a certain field or department, they were unable to have a dialogue with a high level director or a high level professional within the company. And so we have an event called Meet the Executive. And so it's different in that, yes, it is a virtual or an in-person presentation or event, but it's an hour, and in that hour, they're only doing the executive is only going to do a 20-minute presentation on what their job is like, and then the rest of the time, that 30 minutes or so, or 40 minutes, is spent dialoguing, right? So I have the students prepare questions beforehand so that, yes, they're getting a presentation, and that's great, but we all know sometimes being talked to is different from going back and forth and being able to actually share in thought. And so I think that has gone a long way. So different things like that, right? That's just one example of some of the events that we create and that we stand up and that we have to help with the recruitment of these students. So
Mhm.
that's kind of day to day, either creating content, resources, pushing candidates through, obviously, our applicant tracking system, and then of course, creating events, stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of innovation, a lot of
Yes,
lot of
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
prep goes into everything you do outside of the travel, so, as far as the podcast, let's jump into how we even got started. How did this all come about? I guess I can kinda touch on the first part, and
It's
then you
all
can
you.
yeah.
Like I'm just glad to be here, you guys. Listen. I know you guys see me talking, and I probably talk way too much, but I'm just so happy to be here that Sky would have me be a part. So listen, you take it away.
Well, that's exactly how I feel about you, so I can't give myself too much credit. This was actually something that I just recently let you know. I was frightened to start this.
Yeah.
I was tasked by my manager at the time to bring this back to life. It was something that came about during COVID to try and attract new talent to the organization in a unique way that was safe and allowed for mostly nursing students. It was mostly nursing student based to engage them. And I think it was what 4 episodes that were created
3, yeah.
at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then, from there, it just kinda died off naturally, and, yeah, last year, my manager brought it to me and said, "I want you to bring this back to life," and no prior podcast experience, no idea where to start. Luckily, I don't it must have been a conversation that happened behind the scenes because Brandon's manager reached out to me and said, "Hey, Brandon has podcast experience. Would love to be a part of a podcast if you're gonna be doing this." And it was just like the stars aligned and we said, "Yeah, let's do it." So, it wasn't that quick though. It was not a quick process.
Not at all. Yeah.
Lots of conversation of what our focus would be, how we were gonna do it. We weren't given a budget. Um,
Downloading what was, right? Like
yeah.
the transfer of what was, and even though it had been years since it had it been years since,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
since the last, since they had started it, just downloading, okay, well, what worked well, what was, and it wasn't much to go off of because it was only 3, but still
Mhm.
understanding like, okay, great, this was brought to Sky. What is the vision that you guys have for this? We want to make sure that um we incorporate some of the vision from what was, but also know that since years has passed, there's been a lot of things that have changed, right? In how information is getting out. And also, especially it being like the whole career podcast, a lot of things have changed from the target audience that you probably thought you were talking to from when it first started. So
Mhm.
yeah, it definitely was not a simple process like trying to reboot this. It was a
Yeah.
lot of meetings that went into that.
Yeah, it was, summer of last year until about winter when it actually
Yeah.
kicked off. But yeah, it was great though because we were both really aligned on what we wanted this to be, and it's just we're both very grateful that we've been able to follow our vision for it, right? That's a big part of it is not just bringing every director executive level person to this conversation. We wanted to bring people from across the organization to share their stories, to remind people that even though Advent Health is approaching 100,000 team members, that every person has an individual story and a reason that they're here, and usually some sort of career journey that is unique in some way to engage and inspire others to hopefully realize they can do the same thing, even if they don't think they can right now. Hopefully, there's parts or bits and pieces of advice that they learn from these stories that can engage them and encourage them to do so. So it's been great to be able to do that and not really have to follow, a script or, an outline per se, but really just allow people to share their individual stories and highlight them as people, as part of a bigger organization like Advent Health, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I think one of the main focuses was that in an organization where there's 93,000 plus people, right,
Mhm.
trying to approach 100,000, it is impossible for everyone to just automatically know what everyone does here. Like
Yeah.
if I wasn't on your team, Sky, I probably would not know, even just by seeing the title, right? Because titles can mean different things that on every team.
Mhm.
But understanding that, I think we do have a responsibility at every organization has a responsibility to have some type of synergy. Like, what teams do you collaborate with? Okay, that's great. What teams don't you collaborate with? Because just because you don't collaborate with them doesn't mean that down the line you might need somebody on that team. And
Yeah.
so the more we know about what everyone is doing here at Advent Health and how it impacts each other, I think that, that's how you grow a really strong company, and you grow people who not only are confident in what they can do, but confident in what the organization can offer,
Mhm.
on a whole. So I think
Yeah.
a lot of this was rooted in as far as when we got it from the last people that were doing it years ago. A lot of it was rooted in how can we make this fresh and new. And do you want to kind of talk about uh, some of the meetings that we had to kind of talk about maybe changing the mission and changing our target audience, because before it was strictly nursing.
Mhm.
So you want to talk about kind of how we developed who we were wanting to speak to in our target audience?
Yeah, yeah. We felt it was too narrow to really just focus on nursing. So and the title, as you stated earlier, the title itself is the whole career. We want to know about all the careers that are here within Advent Health, and um, a lot of the roles that we've had the opportunity to highlight are very unique. Some of them to only Advent Health, or some of them that are you may not find in every healthcare system because we are nonprofit and faith based. There are some differences there that have allowed us to speak to very unique guests. But yeah, we wanted to expand upon nursing because we know in a recruitment piece we need a lot more than just nurses right now. We need a lot of our allied health roles, a lot of people in non-clinical spaces as well. That's because Brandon and I are obviously in a non-clinical space. That was important for us to highlight too, because I'm not sure either one of us thought we would end up in a healthcare system
Right.
coming from the backgrounds that we did, but knowing and being able to showcase those opportunities, especially as we've mentioned occasionally throughout episodes to college students, high school students, even of being able to allow them to see the career opportunities that are out there. Because when you think of healthcare, you think of doctors and nurses, and you don't always realize that yeah, there's revenue cycle, there's finance, there's we have people that are pastors and
HR.
HR,
Yeah.
yeah, like ourselves. So yeah, there's just a lot that goes into making Advent Health the national name that it is, and being the brand that we are. There's so many people and so many pieces that fall into that. No, I mean we have a whole brand team that keeps our brand
Yeah.
alive and refreshes it and makes those commercials that you may see that can sometimes bring a tear to your eye, like they make you feel something. That's what our brand team does. So it's so much of our goal is just to highlight that there's so many pieces that make up the puzzle of Advent Health, and we want to make sure everyone gets their time to shine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think to sum that up, it our target audience is uh, high school, college age,
Hmm.
but also people who are in experienced roles right now, but looking to pivot, right? How do you
Yeah.
get some true insight and real time insight, right? You go on Google and you might look up, if you're in HR, but you're wanting to make the shift to finance, or you're wanting to make the shift to marketing, right? You're trying to understand, like, well, what is the marketing world like right now?
Hmm.
Sometimes that search that you do on Google, you see it. It says like, when was this published? Maybe 2 years ago, or right. So wanting to find that real time advice and suggestion from great thought leaders or from people who are currently doing the jobs right now. And so I think this, like I said, this is a great podcast for those that are just either entry level or looking to pivot into a new career. Um, so yeah, I think we've done well so far in
Yeah.
accomplishing that. So
Definitely. I mean, that's we set out to do that, and I'm really grateful we've been able to stick to it. And I think one thing that we always try to incorporate is the fact that we know internal team members listen to this as well. This is not just for an external audience, which I love because it still hits the goal of engaging and informing people within the organization that may not know these areas or departments exist.
yeah.
Yeah. So, how do we feel recording our very first episode? What lessons did we learn from that?
Okay, so it was, well, one, I think that the virtual aspect was a little bit tough for me
Mhm.
just
Agreed.
because I felt as if like I was so nervous about technical difficulties, especially because using that the app that we had. I just didn't know, I hadn't used that one before. I had used others, and so for me, I was just a little bit scared of the technical difficulties. But as far
Yeah.
as nerves, I think I wasn't too nervous. I was, if anything, was excited. And our first episode was with a dear friend of ours, and so
Mhm.
that helped as well.
Yeah.
So shout out to Jennifer Eddings. She was awesome. She did a great job, and
Yeah.
so she actually made me feel really comfortable because she is not scared of anything. She just hops when she is in front of a camera or on stage or whatever. She just leans in, and
Yeah.
so I think the first episode, it was good. So it was kind of like a cheat for us because we knew we were going to get a good episode, and I think that
Yeah.
was good knowing that we knew this person outside of the podcast, and we knew what they had to offer. And so if I'm giving any advice to anyone now about starting a podcast, that first podcast, maybe even the first 3 podcasts, make it, if you have a podcast that, has guests, make it something that has, or make it with somebody that will knock it out of the park and make you feel comfortable, because I think that those first 3 or, podcasts should be something that people can really digest, and if it just feels funny or awkward or it feels as if, like, this is not working out, I think that, 1, you're gonna be hard on yourself, right? Because starting anything new, sucks, but it can suck less because, you're doing it with someone
Mhm.
know is a great person,
Yeah.
to have as a guest. But for you, how did you feel? Were your nerves high?
Yeah, I was, because of that pressure of, like, wanting to produce something that was really good,
Yeah,
and, I felt good once that episode was done, and like you said, our guests really helped, but then it felt like once it was done, "Okay, what do we do next?"
yeah,
Like, it was
yeah,
that's what it felt like for a long time after we did every episode, like, "How are we gonna improve from here?" And, I agree, the virtual aspect is really, really tough, so avoiding that and being here now, in Studio 7 here at the corporate campus has made things so much better because even if it's just Brandon and I here, at least, 2 of us being in person has really helped, and having that guest virtually at times if they're out of state or not close to the office, it's been better,
yeah,
much, much better that
yeah,
way to have that human engagement piece that
yeah,
makes it a real live conversation, so
yeah.
but yeah.
Do you want to talk about, kind of the beginning stages of understanding how we're going to source guests, how we're going to invite guests?
Yeah.
Just those different stages, because to be transparent, we weren't given like a list of people that we could connect with and
Mhm.
say, hey, like, you guys can, have these people be guests, right? And so I think initially our thoughts were, how do we create something that people want to be a part of? Because I think having people be the guinea pig is really hard to do because they don't know if this is going to be successful or not. And so our goal was to make sure that, we were finding people that believed in us without having any kind of like social proof, to be honest, because there
Yeah.
was only 3 episodes and those 3 episodes were audio. And so when we were initially trying to source candidates or source guests, and invite them, it's not like we could share with them, hey, here's what we're working on. We didn't have any YouTube videos. We didn't have any social proof to say, hey, go ahead and review this and let us know if you want to be a part of this. We were just
Mhm.
saying, hey, this is what we're hoping to do. Let us know. So, do you want to talk to like building the form and those different things and reaching out to the markets?
Yeah, yeah. So we're very blessed as part of the talent strategy team to have a organizational wide presence through our regional market strategists and our academic lead strategists. So we relied really heavily on them to push out that communication. But like you said, was difficult to still ask them to do that because we didn't have a product to really share. One of our team members, Demario, actually joined us just to be a part of it and support it. So we're lucky to have a team that was
Yes.
willing to have our back on that. But yeah, creating a form, just asking some general questions to gather information, and from there we did evolve, and we had some graphics created for our company TVs and like our lens boards that live within our hospital facilities that had QR codes that encourage team members to listen or to sign up and be a guest. And honestly, that organic way of gaining leads is really what's worked for us. With That's where a majority of our guests have come from. Um, And I feel like that's always helped the conversation because they wanna be there. They're not forced to be there. We're not making them speak to us. They feel in their heart they have a story that they wanna share, so it makes the conversation so much more authentic and genuine, and, I'm grateful that it's worked for us
Yeah.
as, up to this point. We definitely foresee moving into the future of now kind of selecting guests. We've been able to build a bigger list, and gain some insight from team members and from our interns as well of
Mm.
who would be inspirational to hear from. So we definitely look forward to seeing that in 2025 of being able to have more of a say and maybe focusing in on certain areas more than just those that volunteer, but doing a mixture of both because we still
Yeah.
obviously want to highlight those that are willing to join us and share their stories. But yeah, definitely grateful that it's been mostly organic
Yeah.
in the way that we've gotten our guests on the show.
It really has. We have not went without a guest, which
Yeah.
is great. I mean, obviously, we're choosing to do a podcast now without guests,
Hmm.
but we have not went without a guest the entire year that we've done this,
Hmm.
and that really is God, and we're blessed in that because
Yeah.
we have a wait list now,
Yeah,
actually
that's
of
true.
people that were like, okay, we'll get to you. So I think
Yeah.
that's great. And now that we have the social proof, like just understanding how do we elevate the podcast to different levels through doing that, but. Yeah.
Yeah. What's a memorable moment or, like, a favorite episode so far from the podcast?
Oof. Um, I have about 4 or 5. Oh, so I wanna see which one would be the best one. I'd probably have to say either Ryan Quattlebaum or John Culver. So
Mhm.
Ryan talked about just commitment to leadership, his growth in leadership, in starting in the was it the washroom? I think it was
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
dishwasher at a hospital, and then taking that to the heights of a CEO, right? And so the reason why I think I loved his podcast is because he spoke to so many different people, or his episode because he spoke to so many different people. He spoke to people who are just starting out, and so he mentioned how he even got that dishwashing job. His dad worked there, and he had developed a relationship with one of the people in the hospital, and he was able to assist him. His dad was able to assist him in getting that job, and so that just shows me like doing a job that is not your end, but it's something that you can compound on, right? So talking to those
Yeah.
high schoolers, those college, the people who are in their college career right now, just finding a way in, right? So he talked about that, but then he also talked about once you get there, what are some of the things that can make you stand out? And then he also talked to everyone who may be at that high level right now and maybe looking to grow and develop themselves as a leader. So I just think that was his episode was a really full podcast. And so I just appreciated that. But as far as probably the most memorable from a not from an educational standpoint of me, like, actually, um, enjoying, like, the content, but from me enjoying and nerding out about what we're doing here at Advent Health, I would probably say it's John Culver's,
Yeah.
talking about just the, environmental sustainability that that took it over the edge for me. I think it was cool to hear about things that we're doing at Advent Health that, I didn't know about and realize, like, this is actually so cool. I'm gonna go home and look this up after. That was yeah, most
Yeah.
memorable. Yeah.
Yeah. You touched on something that I really feel like Rupert's episode,
His
really
was
struck
his
a
was
chord with
amazing.
me,
Yeah.
because he did exactly like what you just touched on with Ryan's episode, which was, having a master's degree and starting as, the front desk,
Yes.
team member at our corporate campus
Yeah.
here, and knowing that he was willing to take that role, start, where most wouldn't
Right.
honestly be willing to take their pride down to that level and say, "Hey, I'll humble myself to be a front desk associate
Yeah.
until I can get to where I'm supposed to be." Just because he wanted to be at the organization. That really spoke volumes to me. But on a personal standpoint, I feel like that's where we felt we clicked the most for the podcast,
Yeah.
like that we got our setup here. And again, that's all thanks to the team here at Studio 7 really helping us. I mean, the
Absolutely.
teamwork, the partnership here, Dave and Bob here in the studio are just
Dave and Bob,
incredible. So
yeah.
we couldn't we wouldn't have this setup. We wouldn't be physically here without them and their willingness to support us. But kind of just getting things comfortable for us, being in our element, and reaching a point to where we knew we had it. Like this is where we want to keep going in this direction. And I guess just pointing that out because we started last year, so
Yeah.
to be able to say that in what was that, July when we recorded? End of July, you know,
Ye
almost
no, it wasn't even July, it was, like, maybe, like, September,
oh,
I feel like, yeah, and then we officially started releasing things in November.
Oh, when we recorded, yes,
Yes.
I'm sorry, yeah, so,
Yeah.
I guess in saying that, almost a whole year until we really,
Oh,
like,
right, right,
reached
yes.
that point of
Yes.
being, "Yes, this is where we want it to be," and now we've reached our point of where we feel successful, even if others may have thought so before, like, we hit where we
Right.
wanted to be and now continuing to grow, and go past that, so that episode was memorable, like, for the guests and for
Yeah.
just where we were, so, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and then I think this segues well into just how we evolved and how we elevated just our look,
Mhm,
the content, everything, and so I think about how, like, we went from, doing it on StreamYard and or even batching the episodes at first, so as far as, like, giving, maybe, like, the listener some game about, like, podcasting and starting it, I think that one of the things we wanted to make sure is that once we started this podcast, that we would not go without content. And I think that's the biggest thing that
mhm,
hinders people from really getting past that um one podcast mark. So you can look this up. There is statistics about how usually most podcasts don't get past the first episode. And that's just because they don't have like batched episodes. And so what we did, we were like, hey, you know what? We should record. I think our goal was 8 because
mhm.
we were doing this bi-weekly. The episodes released bi-weekly every Tuesday. That's just a little shameless plug there. But yeah, so we were like, you know what? We need 2 per month. And so if we did 8 podcasts, 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, cool. I studied social work, not finance. So we would have 4 months of content just ready to go. And I think that really helped us, our nerves and our anxiety behind, okay, we don't want to start this, especially because, as Sky mentioned, this was a project that was brought to her. And, when I jumped on board, I wanted this to be super successful, of course, for the entire thing. But as her friend, I'm like, hey, I want to make sure that this doesn't die at any point. And so that is kind of like the advice I would give to someone looking to start a podcast right now is batch those episodes, have those backlogged and ready to go, and then you can just continue to operate on a cadence that works for you. And so that's the first thing we did. And then once we jumped on with the virtual, we also added an editor. But even at that time, we weren't doing the social clips. And so
Mhm.
over time we realized like, hey, we actually need to start doing social clips, because yes, this is a great podcast and you can just release the episode, but how are you engaging people? So as you all know, those 30-second reels or those 30-second TikToks or 30-second LinkedIn videos are great to grab people's attention, and get them, interested in listening in. So those are just some of the ways that we've elevated. What are some other ways that you feel like we've elevated the podcast since the start of it?
Yeah, yeah, I love the social post templates that have been created to
Oh,
really
yeah.
engage our followers there, but also our behind the scenes reel was great to kind of show people what Studio 7 looks like and how we have this set up. So that was a fun thing to be able to share. But yeah, it's there's just we started really from nothing, so even to
Yeah.
just be where we are here, starting with no budget to sitting here, is more than I would have ever imagined, but also I think the fact that, we've continued to push each other to continue to make this a better product, like, even though we feel we've gotten it to a really good spot, that doesn't mean we're done, like, we're talking about ways we can grow this and evolve this in the future, and I know that's one thing we wanted to touch on quickly too before we wrap up this episode, and hopefully this has good feedback and we'll be able to do this again
Yeah,
sometime, we'll see.
absolutely. There's so many things that we can't cover in 30
Yeah,
minutes, but yeah.
exactly, but that's one thing we talked about expanding the podcast and just thinking of how we can be more engaging on campus because we have a whole studio here and hopefully doing, like, a live podcast in the
Yeah.
future, that's definitely one of the goals, as we said, being able to have more of, a process in how we pick guests and bringing them in ourselves and kind of strategically releasing them, for when they make sense for, a recognition, of a day or a month or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
So, just being more strategic in that way. Just really, this was the year of getting our ourselves off the ground and being able to uplift this. And now, how do we elevate it from here? So yeah, hopefully, I would say for me, like doing that live
Yeah,
version would be
that would
that
be
that
top
would be
tier.
fun. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think, yeah, as I sit here, I'm proud of us. I'm like, I think that we we did, and I will say this, like Advent Health and our team has made it really easy to get things done. Like there have been limited barriers to like what we want to do,
Yeah.
or asking for for certain things or whatever requests we have. So I'm just really grateful that this team supported us in that way. And I think my like closing remarks or closing advice, and you can share
Mhm.
yours as well, would be starting something new in uncharted like territory. Like, yes, I had a background in like podcasts, but that was more personal, right? So not organizational. And so
Mhm.
understanding like creating a podcast for yourself and creating a podcast for an organization, two very different things. And so in uncharted territory, uncharted waters, to just be super resourceful. And I think that's why we've been successful, is because what I don't know, she knows, and vice versa. And if what we don't know, we will absolutely find someone who does know that. And I
Yeah.
think if you're in that first year, if you're in those beginning stages of starting anything, it doesn't have to be a podcast, but I think just being really resourceful, but also being really broad in the information that you take in, but then having a meeting about, okay, what is the information that we're going to keep? So we want to take
Yeah.
in all the information, we want to be really broad because this is our first year, but what information are we going to say, hey, we're actually going to use that, and you know what, that's not for us, but I'm glad we saw it. So
Yeah.
that would kind of be my closing remarks. What about you? What's
Yeah.
your closing thoughts on how this has been so far?
Yeah, I every time we've had a conversation with someone, I've just been incredibly humbled and inspired because usually the people that join us have something that's very challenging that they've gone through in their life, or that they've had to work really hard to earn several degrees while managing 5 kids.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we've kind of heard it all across what our team members have experienced, and it just puts your life into perspective and makes you grateful for the things that you have and the things that you've gone through. But for me, I look forward to hopefully just hearing more team member stories. Hopefully, this episode, especially, I'd love for it to engage and inspire other team members because we have so many
yeah,
to be able to highlight their stories. Like Brandon and I joke, there's almost 100,000 team members. That
yeah.
means 100,000 stories we have the opportunity
Yeah,
to
we should
possibly
be good
share.
for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's what I look forward to is continuing those, but also um my last thought is just and this is something that is very cliche, but when you're pushed out of your comfort zone is really when you grow. And as I stated, I didn't really have a huge desire to put my voice and my face out there for this. This wasn't really what I felt I wanted to do, but man, has God turned it around and just showed me how special it is and what an honor it is. And and it is something that I am grateful for. And yeah, want to continue doing for as long as we can because it's been a wonderful experience. So yeah,
love it.
awesome. Well, Brandon, this has been fun. Let's do
Yes,
it again soon.
yes, yes, absolutely.
And thank you for listening to the Whole Career Podcast. We hope that you continue to listen and subscribe, leave those ratings and reviews as well for us. And until next time, take care.